So now we see the three ways in which the water or the molecules movement take place inside the plant. So I just explained you in the last video that what is osmosis. So that is not the only way the plant is going to take in water. The first one is called as diffusion. Now, diffusion is going to take place between the soil and the mineral. So soil has got minerals in it and the water in it. So when the water and the minerals which are present in the inside the soil are getting mixed together, so we get a water which is having minerals in it. And so when the soil and the mineral moves in the cell wall by the simple process of diffusion, this movement of molecules, that is gases, liquid and solid, from higher concentration to lower concentration is called as diffusion. Now see, in case of diffusion, there is no kind of a barrier between the two. We see that the only barrier between the cell, that is the root hair, and that of the soil is the cell wall. Now we know the cell wall is a freely permeable membrane, so there is no separation or there is no separating media between the two. So when the water enters from a higher level to a lower level, see, we see over here that this is the root hair. So this root hair is, and this is the soil over here, this is the soil and the water particles over here. So when the water particles enter into this root hair, passing through the cell wall, this is the cell wall. So when the water molecules pass from the soil into the cell wall directly without any membrane in between, so that particular process wherein it goes from a higher concentration. See, the soil always will have higher concentration of water as compared to the plant. So when the water goes from higher concentration to lower concentration directly without any membrane in between is called as diffusion. So diffusion is a process of the movement of water from higher concentration to lower concentration without any separation, or we can say when directly in contact with each other. So whenever there is a direct contact between each other, then it forms this diffusion. Now we can have a small example of diffusion. Like for example, you take the water, you take a paint brush. जब हम लोग पेंटिंग करते हैं तो पेंट ब्रश में जो पेंट होता है उसको हम लोग जब जैसे क्लियर वाटर में डालते हैं, what happens to the water? The whole water becomes, if suppose the painting what we are done was yellow in color, so the whole water becomes yellow. So what has happened? The complete yellow color has got diffused inside the water. Did you understand this? So the whole container which was there, the container had got transparent water over here. The moment you dip a colored brush inside it, the whole thing becomes colored. So this is nothing but diffusion. So diffusion is basically when the movement of molecules, that could be gases, liquids or solids, from higher concentration to lower concentration is called diffusion. For example, while adding sugar in milk, sugar molecules diffuse in the milk evenly, occupying intermolecular spaces of the milk. Okay, so that is diffusion. The next one is osmosis. So we already studied osmosis, so we'll do it once again. Osmosis. This is when the water molecules are moving from a higher concentration to lower concentration, passing through a semi-permeable membrane. So here it is from higher concentration to lower concentration, but with no membrane, no separation. So there is no separation. Whereas in case of osmosis, it goes from a higher level to lower level with semi-permeable separation. So semi-permeable membrane is there between the two. So when the movement of water molecules from a region of higher concentration to a lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane is called as osmosis. The third one is called as active transport. Active transport takes place from lower level to higher level. Why active transport? Because this is a transport which is not going to do automatic. ये ऑटोमेटिक नहीं है, ये ऐसा है जिसके अंदर प्लांट अपना खुद का एनर्जी यूज करके धक्का मार के वो चीज को भेजेगा. So when the molecules of the substance are to be pushed from a lower level to a higher level using the energy of the plant is called as active transport. So the root hair absorb water, both water and minerals from the soil. Water enters the root hair by osmosis because its concentration is higher in the soil than inside the root hair. But in case of minerals, they are more in concentration inside the root hair than outside the soil. These minerals have to be absorbed by the level of the lower concentration to a level of the higher concentration. So from lower concentration to higher concentration is required over here. This movement of molecule needs energy and hence called active transport. So when what the example given here is that you have got water, the water contains minerals. Now, in case of a root, we know that the cell set contains more amount of solute. So, पानी तो आराम से solute में अंदर चला जाएगा. But the minerals also needs to go there. Now, the minerals cannot go directly because the concentration of the minerals already is higher in that case. So, अभी क्या करना पड़ेगा? So, at that time, the plant will have to push the inside the minerals into the inside the cell by active transport. That is using its own energy. So when it is using its energy to go from a lower level to higher level is called as active transport. The water is absorbed by the root hairs from the surrounding by soil by osmosis. So basically what is going to happen is that water is first going to be absorbed by the root hair from the surrounding from the surrounding soil by osmosis. It then moves in deeper parts of the roots by cell to cell osmosis. So what is going to happen will be that if this is the root hair and the water is going to enter over here by osmosis, then it is going to travel inside. So now this is the complete root over here. So it is going to travel inside from cell to cell, it is going to travel inside. So then from here it goes here. From here it goes here, then here, here. Now how does it happen? You can see the water level here is higher concentration, it is absorbed over here. So this becomes higher concentration and this is lower concentration. So from higher to lower with the semi-pure membrane, it goes from here to here by osmosis. Okay, so now this becomes higher concentration and this becomes lower. So this is already lower only. So from higher to lower again. So again, this is osmosis. This was lower, now this has become higher because water has reached this point. So then again osmosis taking place. So in this ways, one cell to another cell, then next and next and next, ऐसे करते करते, the cell is going to, the water is going to travel from one cell to another cell by cell to cell osmosis. And reaches the central xylem which continues upward into the stem and leaves. So basically this then enters inside and reaches the xylem where it can go travel up into the plant. This upward movement of the water and minerals called sap is called as ascent of sap. So when the water enters inside and goes upwards, it is called as ascent of sap. That is nothing but the cell sap. That's why it is ascent of sap. Now this thing, the ascent of sap, is also taking place because of another kind of a pressure which is generated in the roots, which is called as the root pressure. The root pressure, so it is a pressure developed in the root due to the continuous inflow of water. See, as the water keeps on entering inside the root, what is going to happen? The water molecule is going to keep on pushing the water ahead. Hey, bhai, aage ja, jagah de. Like entering into a bus. What happens? You push the person who is just in front of you, so wo aage jayega, to tu bhi aage jayega. Similarly over here, the same thing happens. The water is pushing it inside, so that is basically generating a pressure because the water is continuously, inflow of water is there. That inflow of water is going to develop a pressure. This pressure helps in pushing the plant sap. It is going to help in pushing the plant sap upwards. Due to this pressure, water enters the xylem vessels, which pass through the inner cells of the root by cell osmosis. Thus, root pressure is one of the forces which contribute to the ascent of sap to the stem into the leaves up to the certain height. So, this is how the water is going to enter. So, first thing what is going to happen is there is going to be diffusion. Diffusion में क्या होगा? The cell wall, soil and the cell, पानी अंदर जाएगा, गीला करेगा उसको, that is by diffusion. उसके बाद there is a cell membrane which will not allow the water to go inside, so there will be a cell membrane over there, hence osmosis takes place. Osmosis से पानी अंदर जा रहा है, उसके बाद minerals को अंदर डालने के लिए active transport हो रहा है. Moreover, since the water is coming inside and inside, there is an inflow of the water that develops a root pressure. That root pressure pushes the water inwards and inwards till it reaches the xylem, and from xylem it goes upwards into the upper parts of the plant, okay, to a certain height. So this is how the plants are going to absorb the water. Now, whatever water has entered into this particular plant, part of it is going to be used up in photosynthesis. But you see that photosynthesis requires a very small quantity of water. Then what happens to the other water which has already been continuously been taken in by the plant in the daytime, maximum in the daytime? So there is one more particular activity taking place inside the plant which is going to utilize the water which is being entering into the plant, and that is called as transpiration. So what we learned is that plants continuously absorb water through the roots. This water is sent up through the stem to all parts of the plant, including leaves. Only a little amount of water is retained in the plant or utilized by it in photosynthesis. The rest of the water gets evaporated into the atmosphere as water vapor through the stomata present in the epidermis of the leaves by the process called transpiration. So basically you see over here that if a particular plant absorbs 100% of water, out of that 100% it may utilize hardly 10% of water for photosynthesis. Other 90% of the water which is taken in is going to be lost by the plant in the form of water vapor through the stomata which are present in the lower part of the leaves. So the lower part of the leaves contains openings which are called as stomata, through which the carbon dioxide is taken in for photosynthesis. So when the opening opens up for taking in carbon dioxide, the water vapor escapes out, and that process of escaping out of the water vapor from the plant, upper aerial parts of the plant, that is the upper layer of upper parts of the plant, is called as transpiration. So transpiration is the loss of water from the aerial parts of the plant. So transpiration creates a suction pressure which pulls up water from the xylem to the roots of the stem and then to the leaves. So basically here what we see is, if this is a complete plant, the root has got absorbed some amount of water through, with the help of osmosis, diffusion, root pressure, the water is going to come up to this point. Now here are the leaves over here. So this leaves over here, what happens? The part of the particular water is going to be utilized for photosynthesis. Other part is given out as vapors. So now this removal of the water vapor over here is causing the cell to become dry, and because it becomes dry, it absorbs more water from below. See, we always know that water is going to go from higher level to lower level. अगर ऊपर पूरा भरा हुआ है पानी से तो कैन इट गो फर्दर? नो, इट कैन नॉट गो फर्दर. दैट मीन्स इट विल स्टॉप टेकिंग इन वाटर फ्रॉम द रूट्स. Now, if it stops taking water from the root, maybe the plant is full of water. It may not require water, but it requires minerals. So that's why it needs a continuous flow of water from the roots so that it can take minerals also. Hence, to keep a continuous flow of water, the water needs to escape out from above. This escaping out of water from above is called as transpiration. So the transpiration जैसे यहाँ पे होता है, तो it makes the cell dry, so that forms a lower concentration. Accordingly, the lower part which has got higher concentration of water, the water will push upwards. So hence, transpiration also acts as a suction force. Okay, transpiration also helps in the suction of the water upwards. So it's not only the root pressure which is pushing the water upwards, but it's also the transpiration suction force. It's like a straw sucking the liquid. It will be something like that you're sucking the liquid from the top by means of transpiration. So it forms a suction pressure which pulls the water from xylem of the roots to the stem and then to the leaves. The xylem tissues are in the form of capillary tubes. Where narrower the diameter, greater will be the force of movement of the water molecules upwards. Whenever the xylem vessel lie empty, such as during the loss of water by transpiration, the water from below rises into them by capillary force. So you can see that अगर बहुत ज़्यादा गर्मी है, तो the plant is going to lose its water very fast. The transpiration rate will be very fast. In such a case, the complete xylem vessel over here will become empty, and when it becomes empty, it is going to start absorbing more amount of water from the ground by the capillary force. So transpiration can be defined as the loss of water in the form of water vapor from the aerial parts of the plant. Water molecules are pulled up due to their tendency of remaining joined, that is a cohesive force. I told you earlier that when two bodies are of the same kind, the force of attraction between them is cohesive force. We learned it in matter. So cohesive force, I think in physics matter we had this thing, cohesive between two same material, attraction between the molecule of the same material cohesive, and to different material will be adhesion. So adhesion force and cohesion force. Such a pulling force called transpiration pull is very important in the case of tall trees, where an upward conduction of water takes place even up to a height of 100 meters or more. You can see in tall trees, the root pressure may not be sufficient enough to push the water upwards because gravity is acting it downwards. But here, the suction force which is generated by the transpiration is going to help it to move upwards. So that is how the transpiration takes place. Now the transpiration which is going to take place has got certain factors on which it depends upon. The rate of transpiration is depending on certain factors. These factors are very much similar to what we have about drying of clothes by evaporation. So first thing is sunlight. We know very well, if sunlight is more, what will happen? Vapors form will be more, so transpiration will be more. So yes, during daytime the rate of transpiration is faster. This is because the stomata may remain open to allow the inward diffusion of carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. During night time, the stomata are closed and hence transpiration hardly occurs. So here the sunlight we are using is for photosynthesis. So here we see that during the daytime, when there is photosynthesis taking place, at that time stomata opens up to allow the carbon dioxide to take inside. When it allows the stomata to open for carbon dioxide, at that time the water vapor is going to escape. So till the time the stomata is open, the water will keep on escaping. But at night time, the photosynthesis doesn't take place, hence the stomata are closed and the transpiration doesn't take place. So sunlight is one of the factors on which the transpiration rate is dependent on. Second is temperature. Transpiration is faster on hot summer day as compared to cold winters. Obviously, because hot summer day, the evaporation will be faster. Wind. Transpiration is more when the wind is blowing faster as water evaporates faster from the leaves. So evaporation rate is faster if it is too windy. और हम लोग को कपड़े सुखाने रहेंगे तो हम लोग क्या करते हैं, फैन के नीचे रखते हैं. क्यों? अगर बाहर बारिश हो रही है तो हम लोग फैन के नीचे क्यों रखते हैं? क्योंकि हवा आएगी तो evaporation faster होगा. So that's the same way over here. If the wind is blowing, then the transpiration is more. Third is humidity. What happens to the clothes in the summer, in the winters, in the rainy season? It's difficult to dry them. Why? Because already it's too humid, so evaporation rate is decreased. Same way in case of plants also. If the humidity is very high, the transpiration will be reduced because already there is too much moisture in the atmosphere that the moisture from here cannot move outside. So transpiration is reduced. If the air is humid, air cannot hold any water molecules when it is already laden with moisture, that is humidity. So because the air cannot load itself in any other further moisture, that's why the humidity increases, transpiration decreases. So the four factors on which transpiration depends on is, first was sunlight, the second was temperature, so here temperature, and the next one is wind. Now all these three are directly related, means if sunlight increases, transpiration increases. If temperature increases, transpiration increases. If wind increases, transpiration increases. But humidity is ulta. Humidity wise, what happens? If humidity increases, transpiration decreases. Okay. So with the increase in the humidity, there is a decrease in the transpiration. Now, why is it important for the transpiration to take place? So there are two main important things why transpiration is required for the plant. The first thing, transpiration helps the plant in the following ways. Cooling effect. In transpiration, water gets evaporated from the plant. The heat required for this evaporation is obtained from the plant itself, that is the latent heat, and thus the plant is able to cool itself when it is hot outside. Whenever evaporation takes place, evaporation ke time pe the molecules which are in the top of the this particular surface, they are going to take the kinetic energy, or we can say the energy from the lower surfaces and escape out. So अंदर से जब भी उसने एनर्जी लिया तो अंदर उसने क्या किया, हीट कम किया. So that's why the plant will feel much cooler when evaporation takes place or transpiration takes place. So first thing is that it gives a cooling effect. Transpiration gives a cooling effect. Now same thing also happens to us when we are running or doing something, we start sweating. Why do we start sweating? Because while the sweating, when the sweat evaporates, we start feeling cooler. Okay, so it's a similar kind of a situation. So cooling effect is brought about by transpiration. Second is, transpiration helps in maintaining the concentration of cell sap, that is sap inside the plant body. I told you transpiration के कारण क्या होता है, there is more amount of water which is keeping on drawing from the soil. As it keeps on drawing, so it gives you more minerals also. So it maintains the concentration of the sap. The root continue to absorb water from the soil. If excess water is not evaporated out, the sap would become dilute. Okay, if the cell, अगर water evaporate नहीं होगा तो क्या होगा, पानी अंदर के अंदर ही है, तो what will happen, the cell sap will become dilute. And if it will become dilute, then what will happen, its concentration will become higher. So water concentration becomes higher, so then osmosis will not take place. So if excess water is not evaporated out, the sap would become dilute, preventing further absorption of water along with the minerals required by the plant. So that's why it is required that evaporation, that is transpiration, takes place. Now we just studied that water is required. We take in water, the plant takes in water and it gives out, everything is there. But why does the plant require water? That is what we are going to learn now. That is first thing, use of water in the plant. The water absorbed by the roots is important for the plant in three main ways. First, transportation. Second, food production. And third, cooling. So first is transportation. We know xylem क्या करता है, मिनरल्स को ऊपर लेके जाएगा पानी के साथ में. So automatically transportation becomes the first important means, that is the only possibility for the plant is the water which is going upwards. which will carry the minerals with it. So the water of the plant body, both in xylem and phloem, transport substances in solution from one part to another. That's first thing. Second is food production. Water is one of the ingredients of photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide plus water is going to give you glucose. So that's why water is used for photosynthesis. It combines with carbon dioxide from the air in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. Thirdly, we just saw the cooling effect. So water absorbed when transpired from the surface of the leaves in the form of water vapor induces a cooling effect. So that's why the water is required by the plant for three main functions. First is transportation, second is food production, and third is cooling. You must have experienced that standing under a tree on a hot summer midday gives you a cooling effect. This cooling is not entirely due to the shade, but also due to the loss of water from the surface of the leaves by evaporation. Since evaporation produces coolness, it makes the air cooler. The cool air being heavier tends to settle down and makes the surrounding pleasant. See, always in a hot summer day, even when we go to a picnic or somewhere, where do we try to sit? We sit under a tree. Why do we sit under a tree? Because when you sit under a tree, it feels much more cooler. So the reason is that first the tree gives a shade, so sun se bachte hain. Secondly, due to transpiration, the continuous evaporated water is going to be given out by the plant. So that gives moisture to that area. The moisture will automatically cool down the air. Cool down air becomes heavier, so it settles down. We are already down over there, so we feel cool over there. So that's how the surrounding becomes pleasant over here. So that's about the transpiration and the uses of the water for the plant. Now we see one small experiment which shows or demonstrates transpiration. For this experiment, what they do is they take a particular plant, a pot. So we take a pot. This pot is having a plant. So this will be a plant which will be over here. So this is a plant over here. Now, after this, they are going to cover this complete plant with a plastic polythene bag. Okay, you are going to seal this completely over here with a plastic polythene bag. You will see to it that you are not completely covering the pot also, because if the soil is going to give away certain amount of water vapor, you may get wrong impression that it is the plant which has given the water vapor. So that's why we are not completely closing it this way. So we see to it that this complete bag is connected only to the plant part and not to the soil. You will find that after a few hours there will be droplets of water, and of course this plant will be kept in the sun. So you will see that after some time you will see the droplets of water on the inside of the plastic bag. So that water, how does it come? From where did it come from? It was not connected to the soil at all. So it is definitely given out by the plant. So this shows that plant has given out water in the form of transpiration. So that was about the experiment which is shown over here. The same experiment can be done not in by the plant, but also a stem or a branch which is there of a tree. You can do the same experiment. A branch is there. You cover the branch with a polythene bag and seal it, and then leave it in the sun for some time. After half an hour, you'll see the droplets over there. Now the same thing, you can also see one more thing, that if there is a branch over here, so if this is a branch, and there are two branches. One is a branch over here, one is a branch over here. Here the branch has got leaves, whereas here the branches do not have leaves. So if you put a polythene bag here and a polythene bag here, there will be droplets of water in this, but no droplets over here, because it is seen that the transpiration takes place from the lower part of the leaves, that is to the stomata of the leaves, maximum. Of course, there are certain areas of the branches and the stem also which transpire, but the amount of transpiration is very less. So you cannot identify, it will not form into droplets over here. Well, here you will see the droplets over here, stating that the plants lose water from the leaves. So this is the two important parts over here, that plants sabse pehle it is going to be giving out the water, and here that it is giving out from the leaves much more maximum as compared to the other parts of the body. So the setup indicates that most water gets evaporated from the plant through its leaves. So this is the two experiments what are over here. Now we also see some importance of the minerals which are going to be there along with the water which is taken in. So nutrient elements, minerals are essential for the plants to grow well and complete the life cycle properly. The nutrient elements are divided into two broad categories: macronutrients that are large, required for large concentration. That means those which are required in a larger amount are called as macronutrients, and those which are required in a very small quantity are called as micronutrients. So macronutrients required in a very small quantity, all of them are obtained from the soil, of course. Some of the macro and the micronutrients that occurs in the plant and plant suffering in deficiency are given in the table below. There are several other diseases under each category. So they given first macronutrient nitrogen, which is the major constituent for proteins. So protein के लिए सबसे ज़्यादा requirement है nitrogen का. What will happen if the nitrogen is not available to it? It becomes yellowing of the leaves and wrinkling of the seedles and grains. Next is phosphorus, constituent of cell membrane and certain proteins. It will bring purple and red spots on the leaves and delay seed germination. The next is potassium, more abundant in growing tissues, involved in opening and closing of the stomata. It is because of the potassium that the stomata opens and closes. And if that doesn't take place, then it will be giving poor growth. In micronutrients, iron, some constituent of the protein. Again, yellowing of the leaf will be the deficiency. Manganese, constituent is in some enzymes. Yellowing of the leaves again and grey spots on the leaves. Finally, zinc, which is a constituent of plant hormones which are activate enzymes. Okay, those enzymes which are getting activated by the zinc, so there are plant hormones. What will happen due to the lack of zinc will be D-shaped leaves, yellowing of leaves and stunted growth. Stunted growth means it is not a proper growth. कुछ चीज बढ़ेगा पर कुछ नहीं होगा. Leaves are not properly growing. Some are small, some are big. ऐसे करके stunted growth is what is going to happen in case of deficiency of zinc. So that was about the chapter transportation in plants. Transport in plants. You can go through the questions which are there, the book back questions, and in case of any doubts you can ask me. Right, so this is about the first chapter of bio. Of course we did the ecosystem earlier, but this is the first chapter of the textbook, that is transport in plants.